Nadav, congratulations. Thank you so much for being with us. This is sort of a two-part question, but it's the same question, just asking about slightly different aspects of the movie. How did you decide to, what motivated you to discuss the topics that are in the film, but also how did you decide the story structure? Because it's a slightly different story structure than a lot of people are used to seeing in a narrative film.
It was a little bit cut in the middle. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Maybe you can start to tell us about, first, why did you decide to talk about what you're talking about in the film related to violence in Israeli society?
I think it's like, well, let's say that there are certain motives and certain aspects for this decision, for this answer. As for the topic of I think that in a way I felt that let's say differently. I think this film is my attempt to touch what I see as a kind of DNA of the Israeli existence, to touch kind of collective soul of Israeli society. And I think that in a way the most basic, the most profound and deep issue in Israeli society is this national cohesion, is this idea of all together against all the others. And in a way, while trying to touch this taboo or to check this taboo by creating this struggle from within these two groups, I think that I try to reveal the on one hand the power of this taboo, of this principle, of this cohesion, and on the other hand to reveal to which extent it became a kind of fake mask. I don't know if you hear me well.
No, we heard you very, very well. Thank you. The second question I wanted to ask was, in terms of how you decided to structure the movie and the way you told the story, how did you come to the decision to show it in that way, sort of with the cut in the middle and then the meeting up at the end?
I think that so this construction thing, for me, there are two main reasons. One is important and the other one is very important. The important one touches the cinematic construction. I mean, of course, the film could have been done in a kind of parallel edit technique, like while he dances in front of his wife, while the policeman is dancing in front of his wife, the blonde girl is, I don't know, waking up at their house. While he's taking a shower, she's shooting at a tree, etc., etc., etc. We all know this kind of films, following two different persons or two different groups, and at the end of the film they are going to, I don't know, die together on the same bridge, get married, fall in love, etc., etc., etc. I think that these kind of films, they put the accent, or their main issue is the way, the path that these groups or this person are passing one towards the other. While in Policeman, this is absolutely not the question. The way they are doing one towards the other, this meeting, this collision at the end is in a way the most natural thing. It's the result of their own essence. Like, this is the role of policemen, to kill those who try to confront those who try to transgress the order, and radicals know that in one moment or another they're going to confront policemen. For me, the main issue was, who are they, these people? It was a kind of attempt to touch their existence, their essence. And I felt that for this, in order to fulfill it, I need like blocks of scenes. So this is the cinematic reason, but for me there's even more essential reason, which touches maybe the most, or the main idea, if I can say this way, of the film. That I think that in a way the film is about two groups which are completely unable to communicate, and about people who are completely unable, that don't have the capacity to go beyond their reasoning, to go beyond their system of values and justifications, to go beyond themselves, to go beyond their existence. If they would have had this capacity, everything could have been different. And if they would have had this capacity, maybe they could have really changed the history, but they are completely enabled. So even in the film, there's no possible cut between these two groups. Even in the editing room, where you can do all the magic that you want to, you cannot create a real connection between these two groups. These two groups, this is in a way their tragedy. They cannot meet even in the film. They are completely isolated. They are completely detached one from the other. They no capacity of communication.
Thank you so much. I see some hands up already, so I'm going to start taking the questions. And if you can just, I'll start with you. Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
Could you please tell me, ask the director the reasoning behind that whole scene where they wrecked up the car, where they smashed up the car?
So the question is, what was the reason for including this scene where the punks, I guess they're sort of punk kids, are trashing the car, and then that introduces us to one of the new characters that we haven't seen before?
Let's say, I think I mean, of course, I'm going to answer in 1 second the question, but I must say before that, for me, it's also important to say that there are certain, I mean, it existed from the very, very early stage of the script. So what I'm doing now is giving kind of reasoning, but I would like to ignore a kind of instinctive, instinct that existed behind this decision. For me, I think that in a way, I felt that in order to be able to restart the film, to begin again, to not to erase, but to forget whatever happened before, and to be able to start again, I felt kind of need for noise, destruction, black. I felt that in a way, after this total ruin of the car, we are able to start a new thing. But so this was like a little bit the instinct of rhythm, of narration, of music. But afterwards, I think also that I think that it's an interesting way to meet our new hero of the film, the new character, this blonde girl, because all these scenes put her in this. In a way, in this conflict of a kind of a radical bourgeois girl. I mean, on one hand, I think she's giving up the private property of her parents, this car. So, in a way, it's a moment of liberation. On the other hand, I think no one is very happy when someone is ruining his car. So I think that in a way, this conflict, this contradiction, exists in this moment. And also, it's another form of violence. Like if one of the topic is violence, and we have on one hand this physical institutional violence of the policeman, and on the other hand this intellectual radical violence of these radicals, here suddenly you have another form of violence, kind of arbitrary, wild, unexplained violence. And at the same time, I felt that this punk, they are also kind of commando punks. Like the way they behave, they don't say anything. They don't need to give any explanation. They go there as if it's a kind of permanent or a kind of a well-known ritual.
I have a question for you. I work with the Toronto Jewish Film Festival, and we were standing outside, and as we were leaving, we had a Israeli couple come up to us, and it was not the first time, and gave us a hard time. How can we dare to show a movie like this in Toronto? It's okay to show it in Israel, but how dare we do it in Toronto? And we've had people say that quite often. What is your view on that?
Could you hear that?
What is your...
Okay, so the question was that just following the screening, a couple came up to some of us. The audience couldn't understand it, so came up to us and said, "How dare you show this film? You can show this film in Israel, but you should never show a film like this in Canada." What was your feeling about when you hear something like that?
What is your feeling about it?
My feeling, we think that we should show everything. I'm actually an Israeli myself. I might not sound it, but I'm more Israeli than anything else. And I think that we should show everything because Israel is a country like everywhere else. If they showed a movie like this about France, nobody in France would stand up and scream and say, you can't show a movie like this in France. Israel is a country like every other country in the world.
Yeah, first of all, I agree. Policeman was screened in about 150 film festivals, if I'm not mistaken, and was released in 30 or more countries around the world. It's funny because just yesterday I came back from a kind of tour in the Balkan state, and I was in a screening in Skopje, the capital of Macedonia, a very strange city, by the way. And there was I think it was the attaché culturel, the Israeli attaché culturel in Skopje, or maybe the ambassador, I don't know. And his wife said that screening such a film outside of Israel is a betrayal, and that they know very well what should be done with traitors like this. I think that my role, I mean, I'm not an ambassador. If I would like to be if I would have liked to be an ambassador, I would try to go to a diplomatic service. I'm not. I went to study film, and I'm not an ambassador. I'm a film director, and I'm not. I mean, my occupation is not the image of the state of Israel around the world, and not dealing with Israeli propaganda. I'm Israeli. I was born in Israel. I was born in Tel Aviv. My parents were born in Israel, and the film is a reflection of what I feel about when I go out to the streets of my city, and of my feeling and meditations and thoughts about what I see as the Israeli actual state. I never understood this paranoid thing of I mean, if they would have said that the film is a bunch of lies or stupidities, okay, this is something that you can argue about. But the idea of not showing it outside of Israel, as if we have a kind of secret that we should keep for ourselves, I think it's really, for me, kind of sign of weakness and lack of confidence.
Yes, at the very top. So the question was, you talked about the film as being about cohesion or lack of cohesion between different groups, and the question was, how important was it of you to discuss the issue of the economic disparity of the gap between rich and poor, and was this essential to the film, or could you have chosen another example of sort of lack of cohesion in Israeli society?
When I started to write the script for the film in 2005, I had a short film in Berlin Film Festival this year, and I saw an exhibition in an art gallery in Berlin about the Bader Meinhof group. I don't know if, I guess most of you know this group, group of political German terrorists that was mainly active during the 70s. So I went to an art gallery. The gallery was about aesthetical sides of political terror or something like this. And on the walls there were a lot of manifests about injustice in society, gaps between rich and poor, exploitation of workers, etc., etc., etc. And reading these manifests, what came to my mind was that all of this could have been transferred from Berlin 69 to Tel Aviv 2005, as well as I guess it could have been transferred to Paris 2005. But and that nevertheless in Israel we never had this struggle from within. Now, when I started writing the script, when I started looking for my producers, started looking for finance, for financing in Israel, one of the main argues or the answers were always, okay, we like the script, we don't like the script, but this script is completely science fiction. Because yes, in Israel there are huge gaps between rich and poor, like maybe in other capitalistic states, maybe even more. But the idea of economical protest is just imaginary in Israel. So they said this film is science fiction. I said it's not science fiction, it's the future. And then they were saying, okay, it's the future, but a very distant future. I would say not so distant, and then we had all sorts of arguments if it's very distant or not so distant, etc., etc., etc. The first public screening of the film took place in the Jerusalem Film Festival, July 2011, and 5 days later began what we call in Israel it depends on which side of the map you are, but something between the economical protest and the economical revolution, etc., etc., etc. A huge wave of demonstrations all over Israel concerning mainly this idea of gaps between rich and poor. So, and then suddenly the film became in the press a kind of prophetic film, the film which predicted the revolution, etc., etc., which was of course wrong because I had no idea that something like this is going to happen. And even I remember there was a big demonstration where a blonde girl took a megaphone and started shouting, "Policeman, we are not your enemies," etc., etc., etc. So it was strange. What I'm trying to say is that I think that this topic is very, very present in Israel. Maybe again, like in other countries, and that people. I mean, it's something that accompanies our daily life all the time. And yet, for years, it was a kind of taboo. It was a kind of taboo because this idea of national cohesion, because this idea that we must keep this national cohesion because we are surrounded by enemies, because we should stay united, etc. Because it's never the time to deal with topics like this, etc.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Convey
So I'm going to try to repeat the question as best as I understood it. So it's concerning the very final scene of the film, and the person asking the question said, on the one hand, they understand that when a film is over, it's up to the audience members to sort of come to their conclusions, but just curious to ask you, as the director, what you meant by that film, and especially having the final look between the policeman and Shira, the young woman who was on the megaphone.
First of all, as it was said here, I mean, it's intentionally, of course, it's not by accident that in a way the end of the film is open. I mean, we don't know what will happen to Yaron. Maybe he's going to the next day to I don't know, to quit this his service in the police, and maybe he's going to forget about all of this in 5 minutes. And the film, of course, doesn't give a clear answer. For me, I think at the end we see a person who never hesitated, who never knew who never knew the slightest doubt, who never asked a question, who had always all the answers, having a doubt for the first time of his life, like having doesn't sure that he understands the answer, like they are breaking the door, they turn the lights off, they kill whoever they should kill, they turn the lights on, and in front of his eyes he sees this face of Shira. And I think that in a way, for the first time in his life, he is not sure if this face is the right answer. He feels that there's something about this face that gives him an unknown feeling of he's disturbed of hesitations and for someone like him, it's like going to the moon or something like this. It's huge, it's enormous. Looking at the face of a person you've just killed. Afterwards, I read all sorts of critics. Just yesterday, someone sent me a French critic. Maybe it's very French to write it. Who said that Yaron looking at Shira and see the dead body of a certain Israel that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm ready to get all the interpretations. Yeah, it's very French. This analyze, but why not? But for me, in a way, the main thing is that this person, above all, there's something in the face of this young woman you just killed that suddenly make it, even for 5 minutes, impossible for him to go on, to continue this stage job.
I think that's all the time that we have. So I want to thank Nadav. Thank you so much for staying up and for answering all our questions. And I want to thank the audience for joining us. Enjoy the rest of 2012, and we'll see you back in 2013. Thank you again for supporting Chai Tea and the Jewish Film Festival.